this is the October 24th meeting of the Policy Review Committee at Daniel Boone Administration Building. It's getting a little bit of a late start, 6:10. I would ask everyone to present from the committee are Mr.
Scott Potts.
and Carol Bites. Mr. Jeffrey Scott will not be able to make it due to an illness, and Mr. Kurtz is away, will not be calling in. From the administration are
Jim Harris.
Rob Hurley,
Megan Weber.
and Megan Weber. Could we please, and there are no members of the public here. Could we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so just a little bit of the housekeeping first. The package we got today from the administration to prepare for the meeting. Mr. Potts, I was of the impression, and I talked to Mrs. McNeely about this, that this would actually be what will be digitized for all but the chairman at the next meeting, and it will be posted on the website as an attachment to the agenda. So the public can pre-read them, and all the board members would be able to pre-read them.
That's what we previously
Okay.
we've done that. That's what's up there.
Okay, and she's fine with that. She just asked for a little bit more time, so that by next meeting we'll have that. As the chair, I'd still like to have the paper to rustle through at the time of the meeting. So we okay with that then, Mr. Harris?
The only question was, could we get it information a little earlier to help prepare for it?
And I will. I will
Okay.
really try to be a little more timely with the agenda preparation on my end. Okay, so we had some policies under new business that are of urgency to the administration, so I'd like to jump right into those, please, with their priorities. Any particular order?
We just need to...
On new business, just go right down?
No, what we need, policy 626, 827, and the federal physical compliance policy. The uniform grant guidance, which was passed by the federal government, requires that we have these policies in place. These are, what you have in front of you is obviously from the organization that we have here. They're generic things for grants and things of that nature. Primarily finances, make sure transparency is in place, things of that nature. So that under federal physical compliance, you'll see that type of thing. There's conflict of interest. We had a conflict of interest policy. There was some tweaking to the wording, I believe, in here to make it consistent with the uniform grant guidance. And then the travel reimbursement policy. All those policies are required under the GG.
So we're talking about 626, 6261, 625,
Federal physical compliance, conflict of interest, and the travel reimbursement policies.
not 625 procurement cards.
That is 625. I believe that's a attachment, isn't it? It's a procurement procedure. They put it down as a procedure, or they put that down as an attachment.
As an attachment.
Yeah, is that an attachment?
And one more time for the record, as part of UGG.
Yeah, uniform grant guidance, federal government. It basically ensures transparency. It's not just for schools, it's for like anyone who's receiving money from the federal government, which we do get substantial money from the federal government. They're taking it through Title I, Title II, and not Title III, but Title I, Title II.
Okay, and they are, the wording, these are new policies for us completely, or
We have a conflict of interest policy. The other ones...
in the 800 series though, because I don't remember.
I don't memorize the numbers.
Okay.
827 is conflict of interest.
And did the wording actually come from PASBA then, or from
Yes.
our attorney? From
Yes.
PASBA?
You under some of them delegation of responsibility, like who was doing different things for us.
Okay, so it looks like we're talking about the 800 series for the conflict of interest. It's operations, and that, I guess that's going to be replacing policy 830, which is the conflict of interest presently. And the IT department's been doing a good job of noting that when we approve them, that will replace 830. And there are no 626s, so they are brand new policies that we're introducing. Mr. Potts or anyone else from the administration have any other questions on those? Any clarification necessary? Guess we don't have a whole lot of choice in them. They've already been kind of customized for our district then, you're saying?
Correct.
Okay to move that along then, Mr. Potts?
Yeah.
Grant recipient line. Okay, so we're moving 626, 626-1, and 827 to full board. And then is 808 one of your submissions too, Mr. Hurley? Food
Name of the policy.
services? Food services?
That's not what it was.
And how about procurement cards?
That's not a procurement, that's a percent attachment, isn't it?
It doesn't say attachment. You're talking an attachment to 626 or something?
I think it was an attachment to 626.
Wait, are we on the food service one or procurement cards?
625 looks like its own policy.
They put it as a separate policy.
Actually, I mean, it's numbered 625. It doesn't say, yeah, it's its own policy. The board approves the use of procurement cards for permissible purchases by designated employees to improve the efficiency of purchasing activities. Is this as a result of the discussion we had last month about the gas card and getting?
I know what this is, I know what this is, I'm sorry.
Okay.
This is a credit card. What Kathy's done, just so you know, she's actually going to save the district about $20,000 a year on what she did here. The credit card, basically, she redid our credit cards, and we're going to get cash back. She created a procedure in regards to that, just to try to clean that up and also make sure we're maximizing our cash back from there. She partnered with Hasbro. I mean, they have a credit card, I guess, that's through the Business Managers Association. So that's where that's coming from, Cal.
So this is Kathleen, the
that's
business
what I
manager, the assistant business manager is
Yeah.
making this recommendation
Yes,
because of the internal procedure she changed. This is the
Yeah.
policy now we need.
absolutely.
How many
Great.
cards does she have then?
Well, what she, basically, the major areas are getting, like Casey will have one, we'll have one up here. The major different areas in the district will have one. But what she did is she put in a procedure that, believe it or not, the credit card balance is zero until the purchase order is put in and then approved by the business manager. Then they call and then they'll open up the line to whatever they need to do to make the purchase with that. So that's how we're doing the procedure, basically, is what she put in.
And how is,
So they need authorization, even though before they use the card?
Yes, that's correct.
and the authorization will come through the business office, is that what you said?
Yeah.
And what is the current procedure then? How would it save us $20,000?
Well, basically, and that was an estimate that she gave me. And basically, we're getting, my understanding is it's almost like the cash back, or we would get, like, from using our credit card, like, say, a Chase or whatever gives us 1% cash back. It's a similar type of thing.
So we weren't using cards at all in the district?
We were using.
But they
cards.
weren't cashback cards?
They
It was like
weren't.
American
My
Express or
understanding is
something?
They weren't cash back.
Okay.
I'm not the business manager.
We would also do checks.
What's that?
We would do a purchase order, say for Home Depot.
Okay.
And a PO, someone goes, it's a time consuming, you're nodding, so you understand. You go to Home Depot, you want to buy a phone, or 100 phones, and we go get a purchase order, it comes back, it gets approved, and we go purchase, and then a check is cut. What we're doing now is still a purchase order is in place, but we're paying through a credit card where we have a cashback service.
Who's going to be able to redeem the points then? Is it
Well-
just one individual?
I guess we'll go back to the business office, because that's the fund it's coming out of. So, it's not like mileage points, it's actual cash back.
So
So
in large groups, it's usually only one individual has the name on the card.
well, beforehand, it was Michael had his name on the card. Lauren also, or did
Yeah,
just
it's-
Michael? I know Kathleen has her name on the card.
Okay, so it looks like there's just going to be two of them, the business manager and the superintendent.
I get one. I never knew I had one. Usually, just the business manager holds it, and it's kept in the safe, and it's done because of their reoccurring payments.
Yeah, I mean, we do want to be careful about this type of spending.
I don't think we had an issue before with management cards. It's just now.
Then why didn't we have a policy in place then, is my question. If we had
I
cards
know
before,
Years ago, that was talked about, who has the cards, can we bring them in-house and we'll control them a little better, whether at the high school or administration.
Now, this happens a lot because a principal will get one, all the maintenance people will get one because the maintenance person goes, hey, my guys need to go out to the stores and get stuff, and they don't have time to get a PO and write a check. So it's just for efficiencies. But then what happens is you start finding things come up on the cards, or they're missing. You don't know how many are out there. So then every so many years you bring them all back in, you cut them up, and you kind of start over again.
now those exact procedures, would there be a guideline going with this that describes the internal cautions taken? Because I'm not seeing them
I'm
in
sure there would.
this.
Well, it would be under the guidelines, not the policy.
That's what I'm asking, yeah.
Well, yeah,
Is there
yeah.
a nice guideline that goes with this?
Not that I don't. Well, right now it's still done the same way the POs are, where the card never leaves the building. It's paid. Most things are paid electronic. A lot of things are paid electronic. But we can have guidelines drawn up from the business office.
Yeah, I would just want to make sure that this was, how many are going to be in circulation? Where are the safeguards? We just got embezzled by, in the community of which I'm a member, and I'm not suggesting it would happen here, but I'm very cautious. The manager did end up making $70,000 worth of purchases before we caught her. And I would just like to make sure that this is rock solid, tight. If this is a new policy with cards, which I'm guessing it is, because there is no 625 out here.
No, there is none. That's why really the checks and balances are in the business office, but the same person doesn't buy as the person who pays. That's why purchase orders are approved.
Would you like to meet Kathleen? Maybe they're all-
Everything's been in place. I think we're just adding this.
I'm not sure that we have been playing with credit cards, though. I think
We
there's some
have credit
ambivalence
cards.
there. You have.
We've had credit cards.
You
yeah.
have had credit cards.
Yeah, we've had credit
It
cards.
still doesn't make me feel warm and fuzzy that there weren't any safeguards or a policy in place. So it's just kind of informal. If we're going to do it and put it out there, I think it should be done right now.
I mean, if PASBA, this came from PASBA, obviously, I believe they have all the P's and Q's in place.
You know what, I think we should just bump it up to the full board and see what the discussion is there. It's a standard policy, and see what the concerns are with the full board. You all right with that, Mr. Fox?
Let me do that. That's fine.
I mean, we don't even have this filled in. There's a policy for us to approve, and under 4 guidelines, it doesn't have the maximum amount that's not to be exceeded on the card.
Well, I think there's all, obviously, through the business office, there needs to be, and the superintendent, there needs to be supervision.
But shouldn't the board be approving a maximum purchase on a credit
Well, I
card?
think we do at the monthly voting meeting with any purchases, they're approved by the board.
Not buying a procurement card. We're not restricting the amount of purchases by card when we get those approvals.
Generally, what would happen is there's a budgeted amount monthly for the card. It could be 5,000, it could be 10,000, it could be 100,000 a month, depends on what the business office requires. And then that is sort of trickled down.
Do we know what the card balance has monthly for the purchase?
I could find out. I don't know what the
And
balance
is it
is.
at 5,000 or?
Well,
At this point, it's going to be higher, because now we want to go after the points.
everything I think is going to be channeled through this procurement card to get the points instead of paying a check here, a check there.
That's the name of the game today. And there's no fee for the card, yearly fee?
I would have to check, but I don't think so. And since we don't pay tax,
I don't see any reason to hold the policy up to answer our questions. I think we should probably bump it up to full board for full discussion, see what everybody else's concerns are. And I really think that for guidelines, we should have a maximum assigned to that. It's weird for me to not have a blank in a policy like that. You see what I'm saying, Mr. Mayor? But as long as you're prepared for the discussion at the full board, I'm okay with moving it. Okay, Mr. Potts?
Yes.
And I personally, I'd like to know how many are going to be in circulation, the maximum on the card, and the cost per year of the cards.
Mr. Hurley, as you were stating though, any purchase, they have to call in.
Yes.
Get verification.
yeah, it's still a purchase order. It's
Still,
done.
yeah. It's not like someone's going to call in and want to, or buy something for $20,000 and no one's going to know anything, you're just going to run through it.
Purchase order has to
No.
be approved.
It's still the same purchase process, just how it's paid. It's actually a little easier because then you see an itemized amount that
That's
was
not even
going
into
to.
the pile. You got one check for all those items.
Right.
So the card itself cannot be used at the point of sale, you're saying? Can the card be misused like a regular credit card? You're saying automatically,
Zero limit on it. They can't add.
it has zero
It has a
limit
zero limit. There's going to be.
until it's
point.
authorized,
Until
and
it's
that's, oh, okay.
It's a zero limit.
Nice. Okay, I got it. Okay, so I'm fine with that. All right, to move that? How about 808 food services? I'm just picking through these random ones before we go in our 200 series. I have a lot of supporting documentation with this. Eligibility from the government printing office, non-discrimination, the supporting documents. Does anyone know what's up with this?
Which on the
808 food services.
Those are all the links.
It looks like we did not. Oh, 808 before was transportation, so this is a brand new. 807 was food. This is probably replacing food 807. Anybody know?
Kathleen's here. She'd like to answer some of your questions.
How about that? Thank you. Kathleen, can we ask you about the procurement cards?
Sure.
So it says that the policy, first of all, are cards in use right now in the district, procurement cards?
Yes.
And why is there no policy that prior to this now? Or was there? That dictated the use of them?
There was no policy, and I developed this policy
Okay.
at Exeter.
Because you saw that there was no policy
Yes.
and that they were in use?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So they were using procurement cards or credit cards, but they only had two and they kept them secure.
Okay.
At the business office. The ones that I'm rolling out, I have them for key, like one for the middle school, one for the high school, one for Scott and Matt's, each of the departments.
Okay,
But the credit limit is set at $1.
okay,
Until I see a valid purchase order, then I will relinquish that amount of credit
to that
for
card.
them to use it for that purchase, and then it's back to $1.
Okay,
That's how the control is placed on it.
Perfect.
And with the policy that I think it implements it in, is still a valid PO is needed for every purchase, which follows the same purchasing requirements on everything.
And you would give that PO.
The PO, yeah, Lauren approves the POs. He's in his absence, I approve them. But as soon as I see it, they know the rules were set out that they would have to put in the description. They were going to use the purchase would be done with a credit card, with the
Okay.
payment card. And then once I saw that, it was approved by Lauren or myself.
Would there be any way to have that individual fill out a request, and then that would come to Lauren, and then when somebody would ask for the purchase with the PO, then it would be called in, and then he'd have something to verify with double stamp.
isn't that what the PO is?
The
though?
PO is,
So
he's reviewing the purchase because the purchases, the POs are usually entered
you
either
just
by
wouldn't know
Michelle.
until he gets that request.
Once he gets the request, then I will see it. Now, if somebody has a rush, everything seems to be a rush sometimes, but as soon as a rush comes through, we can walk that PO right through and get the approval on it. And then I have a backup in case I'm not here.
Okay,
I had to pick somebody that wasn't going to do a valid PO, raise the credit limit, and go buy a car. He didn't want that, so I had to make sure I picked the right person.
right. And that's what I am wondering about. What are the concerns with this? How long has it been in practice at Exeter?
The credit cards, they've been using credit cards here for quite some time. I think they were out, and then they reeled them in.
Yeah, years ago, we had there was a lot out there, and then it was unaccountable.
At Exeter?
No,
Here.
Oh, here.
Here,
And
Okay.
then we pulled them back,
Somebody pulled them back,
and
I
then we
think,
only had a few.
and we had two in the business office, and then they were used. The reason that this is so essential is because this is a revenue stream. Every purchase we make, we could earn like up to about $25,000 in additional revenue annually by using these cards.
And that's great and all. I just want to make sure that,
And we had, that's why this was recommended through PASBO. PASBO, which is the Association for Business, Officials that I belong to. And the controls that they have, they see more and more school districts to make it convenient. So the high school doesn't have to run over here. All they would have to do is get me a valid PO, and they can have their card by setting those credit limits to $1.
okay.
There's no loss to the district, even if the card is lost.
And the business office themselves sets the limits on the on the
I
cards?
have a computer program. I go right
Okay.
in.
That's what I was
And
wondering.
on time, I mean, if the PO was right in front of me, I could give them access within less than 5 minutes. It's a login, change the credit limit, and go back, and then I have a backup.
Okay, yeah. So it sounds like it's a step towards efficiency and a potential revenue generator.
Yep, and then
And,
also the credit card statements, there was a problem with timely payments. But this is taken right out of our PISLOF account. I run the statement on an annual basis, or a monthly basis, and then the amounts are taken, so there's not even any checks. They take it directly right out of our
Okay.
PISLOF. They link with the PISLOF.
I thought I saw in the policy that the card user actually balances the statements. That's,
They all get their individual statements at each one of the schools.
okay.
I,
And you
they-
get the master.
I get the master,
Okay.
which means I'm looking for valid POs. They should have never used anything unless there was a valid PO.
Okay,
Because I'm raising
good.
credit. There are open POs, like Casey would be purchasing things as he goes around, some supplies. So he
Right.
had an open supply PO that was maybe up to $100.
Okay,
So I've released his credit limit for that $100.
okay,
So
okay.
he has
Right, like a
$100.
petty cash account.
Exactly, and then
Okay.
he can use it that way. And we're talking about maybe using his card for fuel as well. The
Uh-huh.
more purchases, the more money we get.
Right, right.
So we're just kind of like looking at different things, how we can use this.
And there will be agreements signed by each of these employees that are using them?
Yes, I have the agreement, it's a matter of sending them all out.
And then it's an errors and omissions insurance policy that'll be covered on them. It says the board shall purchase adequate insurance coverage.
We already have, our insurance carrier already has this in place.
Okay.
It's just making sure that it matches up to what our credit limit is.
Okay. And there's no dollar figure on the maximum purchase under guidelines.
I set the limit, so when the PO comes through, I mean, we have a limit for the cards in there. There is no, one of the cards is $400,000. We have a credit limit for the district of $400,000 or $500,000. But that's in my office, and the valid PO has to come through in order for them to be used.
So for example, the roof at the high school could have been paid through this.
Absolutely, if the vendor.
What is that? I'm sorry, I missed that question.
Tremco is already, we just paid $60,000.
I'm saying it could have been if
We
we
could
had
be
the
paying
card,
those.
it could have been.
well,
It hasn't been, from Tremco, I just paid the $60,000 bill, and we have the other ones due 10/30 for $170,000. I'm paying that one as well.
Through the card. So will that give enough money for the district to buy a pool? I'm just
Depends on how much
wondering.
the pool is.
And what is the annual cost of the cards? No, no charge?
No cost, there's no fees, no nothing.
Mr. Wolf has joined the meeting. Good evening, Mr. Wolf. We're discussing policy 625 procurement cards. Quick look at that. I don't know how much of that discussion you picked up. Cashback cards.
My company does the same thing.
Kathleen is innovating it. I'm a little bit concerned that there's no amount under guidelines. I guess that's what we're discussing now on page 2. Should that be taken out then, or? There's no restrictions on any one purchase, and there's no credit card, there's no restrictions by the company, who is the bank that I guess this is through, is the question?
PNC.
PNC? And they have no restrictions on, or limits on that card?
They have done a thorough evaluation of our financial statements. I sent them 3 years back. They set a limit to our cards of $500,000, but that's like on a monthly basis. So once I've paid that card off, I get my credit limit.
Okay, and that's based on our credit rating and that.
Yes.
So what's your suggestion for that, under the guidelines for the maximum? What would you like to see put in there or removed?
Well, the maximum would be 500,000, the credit limit.
It would
max.
have to be the credit limit because I could end up having, let's say we do an initiative where we have one-to-one computers and we do a purchase for the district for the students or a textbook that amounts to $300,000 or $400,000. I'd like the option of being able to pay that.
So should we put the limit of 500,000 per
Yes.
month then? I mean,
I think
I'm
so.
just uncomfortable passing a policy
Oh, it's
without,
okay. It's all right. We'll
with a
put the
blank.
limit.
I'm not trying to be difficult, I'm just
No.
trying to be thorough.
I would say just the credit limit itself.
500,000 per month. And then, Mr. Wolf, getting back to the discussion on the gas card from last month, we we're talking about how it impacted the return, the condition of the vans, people weren't topping them off because the Sunoco station, I guess, was closed.
Well, we actually had further discussion with Mr. Small last week, and he actually pulled out the brochure that came with the credit card. That credit card appears to be able to be used at Turkey Hill, Exxon,
Oh, okay.
a host of different vendors, not just Sunoco.
Okay.
Which is kind of counterintuitive. Why does it say
Yeah,
Sunoco if you
yeah.
can use it at all these other places? But he was going to check with that issuer to
Okay.
find out if
All right, so we'll get some
You did?
clarity then, whether
Well, I think-
Mr.
I think she just said she has that
I
clarity.
made the call and they said that they were still able to be used at all the vendors that were on that form.
See, I don't think anyone knows.
Okay,
I didn't know, Mr.
Uh,
Potts didn't know. It's just,
I'm just confused then, is it going to be tied to Casey's card? The gas purchases, then if we can work that out, we won't have to mix them in with the use of this card. Casey's, you had said maybe Casey's card would be used to put
Well,
gas
that's
in the
what-
vans.
The gas card isn't going to give me cash back. The gas card is not going to give me a benefit, whereas
Right,
the credit
right.
card will. And as if I did an open PO for him for fuel based on what he consumes, not
Okay,
to
so
exceed a certain dollar
we might be
amount.
talking about both cards for cash purchases.
That's what I'm
Okay.
thinking.
But
gotta
couldn't
have
you-
That fuel card, either Casey or George.
Right, there's not very
That would
many
be it.
people that are having these fuel
Or
cards
whoever,
anymore.
but would like to have that.
So what I'm wondering is if we could just eliminate those, I'd turn them into the procurement cards and label
Yeah.
them as such,
Yeah.
then we're
For
getting more
gas and-
benefits.
Yeah,
But couldn't
that's
the
the way to-
procurement card pay the gas card?
No, I can't call. One credit card can't pay another. I wish they could. Cash advance would be great. We'd do cash.
is that the way you see us going then? Getting rid of the Sunoco gas card?
Getting rid of
Putting
all.
a certain amount, maybe a $100 limit on a
Exactly.
gas card, on a
And as
card,
long as
called
I
a
have
gas card.
PO, an open PO for fuel, based on the averages, whatever they use. And even if I did it on a monthly basis where I just release that credit limit just monthly, whatever, just to make sure that, to see where they're monitoring
Well,
it.
would that be a PO or just a credit card receipt slip, right? We're talking about,
Well, every purchase in the district needs to be done with a PO. That's our policy. So, I mean, just to make sure we're in line with when the auditors come
You'll
through.
have to adjust what Casey would use that month for every month, and that's what the PO.
okay, well, I'm okay if you're okay with it.
Yeah.
How would that work for these, if the gas cards are going to be replaced with procurement cards in the vans and in the trucks? How's that gonna work? Yeah, because
When, like-
you're not gonna stop and ask, call,
Yeah,
you know,
the
Catherine.
boosters returning
That's
the
why I'm
van.
saying that you put that card in the truck.
Another card
with
goes
that.
with each van.
You wouldn't have the Sunoco card in there.
Right,
You would
it
have
would be the
this.
procurement card.
Yes, and I
But
would
how
make sure there would be an ample amount on there.
For
It's not-
anyone
I
to
don't-
use that? No, that's,
That's
actually, how
why,
can we
that's
do
why you're
that?
doing the open PO, correct?
Yes.
That's why there's an open PO, which is like a line of credit
Okay.
attached to that card up to a certain amount. It would be adjusted if,
You don't want to
say-
make it too big
Right.
because if something did happen and the card did, I want
Yeah,
as
if
little
somebody would
liability.
steal the card, you
I'd
would-
rather see them hold the card, say it would be Casey or George.
And that's what I was just having that
Or-
conversation
or
with
Mr.
Scott
Wall.
as well.
Van
Scott
Dyke.
wanted to lock it up in his office. I'm like, there's only $1 on there, please carry it around with
Well, I
you
mean,
that
if
way.
you have
Right,
a gas
right,
card in
right.
the truck, I mean, obviously, if we go for fuel,
I would rather
I'd rather
that,
see
yeah.
the van director give the card out to that individual that's driving that day. That way, because you know what's gonna happen, it's gonna lay in the trough, we're gonna go for it, it's not gonna be there in the door, the time on the door. It's gonna get
True.
lost. That's the only, I'd rather see someone, or George hand it to
Yeah.
the volleyball coach, or the bowling team, advisors.
Then
Someone
this-
that needs that van. So when it's checked out, they get the card with it, and they gotta bring the card back.
That makes sense.
then would we need another version of this policy for non-employees? Because this is specific for employees.
Well, and I mean, if you're a volunteer, by definition, you're an employee.
and that would go under guidelines, not the policy.
Right.
The guidelines for
I know, but-
use of the,
It'd be more of a procedure
right.
as opposed to a policy. A policy is just the bigger view of what we're doing, and then the procedures are volunteers, employees, whatever, must sign out that they know, they understand the agreement of using a card, they have to check it out, they have to return it.
So the list, should we change the wording then? Should it be employees or just personnel? I never heard that before, that volunteers are considered employees? Is that
I had to
accurate?
fill out an
It's-
application and
Is that
everything
right?
as a volunteer, so,
They're responsible for all the policies and everything?
yes.
Yeah, because when you're a volunteer, you're accepting that you're responsible for the same code of conduct. It's one of our policies for volunteers in booster organizations.
Well, I thought there was something in
you're-
employment status that says that you're an employee if you accept more than $500 a year, and that if you didn't accept anything, that you weren't an employee for, labor regulations and stuff.
Yeah, it's in the.
I thought it was
it's in the
very
volunteer
clear.
It's in the volunteer policy.
No, but I think it's very clear that they're not employees.
Yeah, you could be right. I think.
Could you just clarify then if we need more, or the language changed, if we're going to include the volunteers to also use the card?
Okay.
Or if there's supposed to be like an extra section. And are you anxious to get this started, so you want to see this pass through committee tonight, probably?
I'd like to see us have some form of a policy in place where we don't.
So, I mean, are you ready, pretty much ready to start using it, right? Okay, so I'm going to suggest that we move it to the full board and just keep it out of the hands of volunteers for the moment until we
Okay.
figure out that the policy is definitely going to cover that, okay?
Sounds good.
I'm quite comfortable with it, I appreciate it. I think, you know, I think you've done us a great service by looking into this. And I think, I feel the assurances are there to protect its misuse. And I think you're saying all that.
I like that credit limit, being able to just do it
Yeah,
on the
that's
fly.
neat.
That's a huge
That's really
control
neat.
over the whole
Yeah.
process.
Okay,
It'll
so,
be nice to review all that statement, all your purchases.
It's really, I take it, you go right on the website, you import it right into Excel, I
Good.
sort it out, we make sure everything's on there, give it to AP, and AP processes it. It's
Okay.
a very simple
good.
process.
I like the efficiency. Okay, so we're going to move that. Anything else from the committee? Anything else from the administration? All right. So I think we talked through that through carefully, and I think we should. We're talking about credit cards. Okay, so then 201 through 206. Are these, do you know, Mr. Harrison? Thank you,
201?
Mrs.
Thought we were on 80.
They from, well, I jumped down. We did the second half of these now, all these spot ones. I'm jumping.
Food service. Okay, we're going back
Oh,
to
yeah,
the
yeah,
top.
yep, we were going to
We
talk
were on
about food
food
policy,
service.
thank you, yep. Do you know anything about that, or do we have to bring it
Just
up?
updating language about the program, who operates it and compliance-wise. There's no changes really in it.
You know who requested us to update the language? What's the genesis of it?
No, I don't. I mean, it's just their updates. All the bold areas are the updates.
Yeah.
All this is always reviewed, obviously, by our contractor, food service contractor. So this is just information out there for us. This is always.
Does anybody from the board or the administration have any concerns or comments about the wording of the new policy? For 808 food services? Nor do I. You think Paz will send it to us? So get this one changed? Yeah, it's just gonna bother me, like, where did it
Well,
come
it is
from?
Hasbro, but Hasbro.
By our request, or by their,
I know there are a lot of financial things coming out now for grants and everything. Maybe that's one of the things they want us to look at.
okay. Move to full board, everybody, okay? Okay, so 201 through 206, is that our new group from Policy Review Services? That new
Yes.
batch?
Yes.
Okay. I did have a chance to glance at them. 201, admission of students, specifying the age requirements, that the board establishes the age requirement for admissions of students.
Change there.
And ours is only students who are not 6 years of age on or before November 30th are eligible for early admission. Board establishes the district entry age for beginners as 6 years before September 1 of the year of admission. Age, residency, and immunizations proof are required. Everybody okay with that? Okay. Moving 201, how about 202, eligibility of non-resident students? It's a lot of new language. It looks like maybe we're just shoring up the understanding that if someone does not reside in the district, they don't get to come to school. We won't provide transportation, they may have to pay tuition rates. They have 60 days to stay. If the parents are moving, the child gets to finish out the school year if it's within 60 days. Of course, that's not new language. Looks like we changed parents to guardians, also to include guardians also. And I noticed that a child who is living in or assigned to a facility or institution may have to pay a charge if they're not living within the district. So the new language there was assigned to a facility. Anybody have any trouble with that one? Any questions, any
These
clarity?
are all changes, right, from PASO?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Potts?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Wolf? And the references are the School Act of 1949, so it's pretty standard. I guess there are changes in that. 203, immunizations and communicable diseases required by state law for admission, and a parent could opt out for religious reasons, or if there's a medical reason. Those are the only reasons the immunizations could be waived. Subchapter C from the state code, immunizations is referenced. So I don't think, I'm okay with this. Anybody have any? Okay, Mr. Potts? Mr. Wolf? Okay, 203 is okay.
Yeah, changes in 2 or 3.
203.1 specifically for HIV infection assures that the students who may be infected are assured of confidentiality, and
There's no changes.
just the definitions, I guess. Definitions are AIDS, HIV infection affected students. Yeah, there are no changes on this. Okay with that then, board? 205, postgraduate studies. The board shall assume no responsibility for making its regular educational program available to district residents who are high school graduates, nor after the end of the term in which a student reaches the age of 21 years. The board shall not be responsible for the continuing education of such residents in any other school district. Looks like that's a brand new policy. And that's it. What I just read is the entire policy. I guess state law says that we have to, they are entitled to a free and appropriate education through the age 21. This just clarifies that it's just a high school education. We don't have to offer post-high school studies, right? Is that
Yes.
kind of the gist of this?
Yes.
Okay, I'm all right with it. Mr. Potts?
Good.
Mr. Wolf? 206, assignment within the district. Now, basically, the district gets to assign students to where they go based on their needs and abilities. I noticed that the parents of twins or higher order multiples can request that their children be placed in the same classroom or separate classrooms. And the rest of the policy specifies what those conditions are to stay there. The students can't be disruptive to the education.
Want to use a black pen? I mean, I was using a Sharpie.
Okay on that, Mr. Potts?
Yeah.
206, we're moving to full board? Any questions? Mr. Wolf?
No.
Hey, you don't have them.
No. I'm listening to what you're reading.
Okay. Is that it? Throw them all?
Now we have 600, or is that,
I have 600 in my documentation, but I don't have it
no,
on
no,
here.
what is that? It's 600. Federal fiscal compliance and travel reimbursement.
Oh, that's 626, yeah, those are the ones we already talked about, right?
Wow,
626. Are you looking at the 600 section?
600.
This one right here?
Yes.
626.
Yeah, good one.
This is the one, we already did that one, right? This is just the documentation for,
It's just out for review, that there's no changes to 626.
What's 626?
this is the federal fiscal compliance that Mr. Hurley explained earlier is basically the uniform grant guidance regulations that are, have to be just codified. We never had them, they're new policies. And Mr. Hurley, is this like from our attorney or, oh, I guess this, the federal government contacted you,
Federal government
told you you need to get these.
requires you to not have these studies required.
Okay, so 626, to read the intro, the board shall ensure federal funds, and it has to do with federal funds and grants and receiving Title IX funds and all. And everybody, every government agency who receives federal funds has to have these on their, in their policies now. 626 reads, the board shall ensure federal funds received by the district are administered in accordance with federal requirements, including but not limited to the federal uniform grant guidance. The board shall review and approve all applications for federal funds submitted by the district, has a delegation of responsibility. The board designates the federal programs coordinator and the business manager as the district contact for all federal programs. Who is our federal programs coordinator? Mr. Hunter. So that the last of your package here is that, and this does tie into an issue we had ongoing about grant disbursement policy. So we did agree to move that on. And then 6261 is the travel reimbursement. The board shall reimburse administrative, professional, and support employees and school officials for travel costs incurred in the course of performing services related to official business as a federal grant recipient. So it's all specific to how the federal grant money can be spent. It can be spent for transportation, lodging, subsistence, and related items incurred by the employees and school officials who are in travel status on official business as a federal grant recipient. Okay? And then, well, I might as well read this last one, 827. The conflict of interest. The policy shall affirm standards of conduct established to ensure that board members and employees avoid potential and actual conflicts of interest, as well as the perception of a conflict of interest. My only concern is here, that we have a policy like 000 for the board
Yes.
conflict of interest, don't we?
There's
And
a
does
000.
does this replace that one? De minimis impact, financial interest, honorarium. And I'm wondering why it goes under 800 operations as opposed to zeros, which is board, local board procedures. F8, 008. So we do have to be careful there because this is something we've been working on at this board, not having conflicting policies. So my only question would be, Mr. Hurley, could you just find out if this is going to replace 008 or if it should be identical to 008, which we already got? That's called the Ethics Act and Conflict of Interest. It's already out on board docs. Actually, it is the same. No, public official. It is a little different. Okay, I got it. So 008 specifies the ethics, the conflict of interests, specifically as they relate to the Public Official Employees Ethics Act. This is the conflict of interest as just in general across the board.
It's pretty much the same
We should
thing.
use the number being because of federal compliance that they're giving us right here for House Bill 827 rather than 008.
Okay.
Even if there's duplication, to be in full compliance, I would use numbers specific to the federal program.
Because they're looking to see that we have policy 827 in place to be a grant recipient, correct?
We could have our normal policy that's very similar for normal board policy that's in full compliance with federal program. When the auditors look at it, they were the ones that raised this.
So we need to have that policy in place, even though we have something similar.
Maybe redundant to some degree, but you're covered.
Okay.
I'm okay with redundancy. I just don't want it to say two different things.
No, it doesn't.
Okay, I think we should move it along anyway, and I'm just going to take a peek at it before it comes to full board in case I have any more questions. Is that all right?
Yeah, it's, you got
I don't
time
wanna hold
between the
these
first and
things up.
second reading, so.
Okay. All right, so is there anything else for the committee from any committee members? Mr. Potts, Mr. Wolf? Anything else from the administration that would like to address tonight under policies? Mr. Small, do you have another one? Oh, yes. We wanted to talk about the booster policy. And our first year in the cycle with the new, right, second year, but for like,
This is March of 15, I believe.
okay, first
And then
full year.
Last year, we brought this forward.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for reminding me.
One question I had, was sitting here, and it may have already been done. Did we change this policy 915 to read that these are technically due July 31st instead of August 31st? Because we discussed it last year. We talk about approving their activities annually in August, but then we went on to say that they weren't due until August 31st.
Right.
Did we ever go back and change that policy to July 31st? I was just looking at my notes from last year.
Good point. That was 9.
But yeah, you wanted to vote last year at the end of August, correct?
I still had the August 1st date in my head that they were due, but I just wanted to make sure that we changed the policy.
919? 909, right? No? Wasn't.
915.
Oh, yes. Well, if it's not, I'll make sure it gets
Could have
changed.
been just a typo, but the point is, I don't think it was a typo. I don't think we went back and changed it.
And I think they have more time in the summer to prep these than they do come.
Yeah, the point was fiscal year ends June 30th. You have a month to get your reports together, send them over on July 31st, and then you can put them on. There's not a meeting in July anyway. If we're going
We
to
turn
have,
everything into our account.
So refresh my memory on that. And the boosters
they would submit their reports by July 31,
are July 31.
and we would put them on the CAL for August for review.
unless you want them to go through the policy committee every year.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Do we?
Yeah, I don't see a need for it.
No, yeah.
You made the criteria that they have to fill out pretty specific. and
Right.
They only have, some of the stuff you only have to submit if it changes, like I think your,
Leadership.
well, that and your bylaws. The bylaws, that you have to do every year.
So anyway, what I have here tonight is a summary of what they submitted. And I will simply move it forward to the November CAL and get it approved. If there's any, after you've had an opportunity to review these documents, that I must say, the music organization, they must use a CPA.
Yes, we do.
Really?
They do a nice
Because-
job.
Nice.
There's a couple things that I'm going to point out to the athletics folks that they could do a little different in their formatting. The information's there when you dig for it, but
Good. Try to get more uniform reporting.
so
Do you have any concern, like, you looked at all these numbers, any red flags, anything jump out at you?
I
Look like,
didn't dig in real deep, but I think we're accomplishing what we set out to accomplish.
yeah, we've got the
We're trying-
transparency.
We're trying transparency, and we're trying to make sure that they're not doing as booster organizations what the district's responsible for. Am I correct? Part of our.
Those were concerns, yeah.
Also,
And-
it's more, I think more importantly, it's oversight, because you want to make sure, since there's Title IX implications on the sports side, you want to make sure that you know where the money's going, so it's fair and equitable as much as possible.
So, right, the
And
account.
if I had these in place by July 31st, I would pass them through your independent auditors for a cursory review as well. Because they
Cool.
come in at the end of July for their work session.
So, yes, we've got the transparency, we've got check that they're not purchasing what the district should be, the oversight for the spending.
The district always,
Was that?
So let me ask that. Is the gap from what the district's paying from what the boosters are raising is about $30,000? Is that what I'm seeing here?
That's what we wanted to see.
That's on the front page.
your liabilities.
Right. So the gap is pretty much $30,000. We could say would have to kick in more for pay. On the first page, under total liabilities,
Well,
roughly.
That's their balance sheet. I think in the case of music, they, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Wolf, they have traditionally been providing above and beyond what normally they support, for instance, the color guard, a portion of, when they determine their program, the field program, they support the purchase of the program and the uniforms.
Big budget for all the music activities, whether it be elementary school through the high school. Everybody gets a portion of it.
Instrument repair. I mean, we have for each school, whether it's AEC, BC, there's a fund for that.
They are.
Expenses they incur. You know, obviously you see the pizza parties for all those. Yeah, I mean.
They're like an entity within an entity.
We are looking, probably not this year, but going forward, we're setting up a uniform fund, and we're looking to purchase new uniforms. So that's going to be about $45,000.
Now, that was something we were going to talk about in the policy, the fundraising policy. What funds should and shouldn't be raised to purchase once we found out where the money, what the booster groups were trying to spend money on.
Are you music or athletics? Talking about band uniforms, choral. Yeah, on the athletics side, I think the discussion centered around the district's going to budget for any uniform required to field a board-approved PIAA competitive team.
Right.
they want to buy extras, warm-ups, gym bags, whatever, that's fine.
Right.
That's their program. Now, on the music side, it would be something similar, but you're saying they're talking of, rather than budgeting for band uniforms or choral uniforms,
Well, Coral last year, we did supply purchase of new uniforms or outfits for them. So that was around $6,000. But now it's coming up on 10, it's been 10 years for the high school.
band?
For the band, for uniforms, and that's about the life expectancy. So don't get me wrong, they are in good shape. But we are actually in the process of, Mr. Wolf is looking at designs right now. He has 3 designs from the company. It usually takes about 7 months to design from the conception to the prototype. But that's the stage we're at right now. We'd be looking around 100 uniforms. They do some discussions.
Yeah, that's,
And obviously, everything for approval as far as I told them, as far as uniforms.
maybe the boosters can offset the cost, but they shouldn't be trying to fundraise for the cost.
Right. I think,
Did they put that in this report?
I didn't pick up.
Or would that be next
Yeah,
year?
that's
Next year's, okay.
This is a summary of last year.
Right.
Well, there is a budget in there, but I think then when he gets some firm numbers together, I think a visit to the finance committee would be in order.
Plus, one thing we want to make sure is that whatever design he comes up with has to be approved by Mr.
Well,
McKnight.
that's what I had said, basically, we had that problem with the football team, with the uniforms.
That was the,
Even though they
If
were
it's the
donated,
official
That was the-
uniform,
it's a gray area.
that was the start of this whole thing.
So,
which team?
Football.
Yep. And that's in the policy now, I'm pretty sure, that if they make that, there's a special way, even if they are going to make that purchase, it has to be approved, and the money is given to the school, and the business office actually makes the purchase.
I think it should be a requirement for any of the booster organizations. If they're going to take on something that, as Mr. Wolf says, is support of budgetary items, they ought to ask for some time at a finance committee meeting.
right, we're just trying to get some numbers, and I said, once we get some numbers.
Yes, but no matter which organization.
Right.
So let's just make sure that policy 915, we put a lot of work into it, is being applied with throughout the district then, Mr. Harris?
Well, we also want to put a note
Right,
for you
'cause
to
that's-
change the date.
Yep, I will, yep. And that's the date, yes, I'll make sure that date is
July
changed.
31st.
Yep, on 915. Did you have much trouble this year getting compliance with the August 30th date? Was everybody pretty, because it was the first, second cycle, but,
The organizations were in compliance. I think we had a bit of an internal communication breakdown. That's okay.
well,
can
and we,
change the personnel.
exactly, right.
I got it eventually.
So you think this is going to work out pretty well then?
Yes.
Good. So in the future then, could you make sure the whole board gets this report? I would like,
They will.
yeah,
It's going
great.
out for the
Perfect.
November cap.
Okay, so I'm just going to caution the administration.
Channels were defined, and the leads were strengthened.
I think we do want to look carefully at what they're purchasing each year to make sure that they're not buying uniforms and, things that are not in compliance with the policy. Storage facilities, things like that the district should own
That's
for
part of this
insurance
broader
purposes.
discussion that we should be having about what the district should be financially responsible for purchasing in support of these programs.
And that discussion will come, I think, if they follow compliance with the policy and it comes up through the channel thing, wouldn't it? If they're following this policy, they shouldn't be buying it.
Well,
Themselves.
just say we think that somebody should be deciding, all right, should baseballs be the requirement of the district to supply baseballs to the baseball team? Well, unless it's driven down from the district to them, then how would they know
Like a
what should
grade.
be included and what shouldn't in their budgets?
So they're gonna figure that they're not gonna be getting any support, so they're gonna go out right away, and if we can handle this on our own, why not handle it?
Well, Under 915, number 3, it says booster support organizations purchasing any gifts, equipment, or uniform which requires installation, storage, or maintenance shall require board approval. Any such equipment and uniform shall become the property of the district. So if they're following the policy, it would all flush out.
Yeah, last year, the Music Boosters donated, what, $4,000 or $5,000 for a vibraphone. And that was on, to accept it, right, it was on the
Good.
agenda.
Okay.
And that's the other piece, when they do
After this.
support the budget, similar to a gift from the foundation. Means
Just comes through after.
We've done that in the past where we had to give, gave them donation to the district. And
they
then
need to do that
they
formal
funnel that
recognition.
out, channel it towards what that issue is.
Okay.
But if a formal recognition is on the agenda, there's never a question of who,
I think you have to ask for a check. Just a check. That-
cash, whatever you.
We couldn't just go out and buy it. It was better to give it to the district and then give it back.
Well, and then the check, to make sure it's not unapproved, that it's approved by the board, is to make sure it's on their budget, where the business office catches it too, right? Because you would have a heads up that they're planning to buy it before they bought it. Okay, I like it. I really appreciate seeing the policy in action here with this. And I'll make sure the date gets changed, and I'll just caution the administration to make sure 915 is followed. And thank you for that, Mr. Small. Anything else from anybody? Any comments from the public? Anything for the policy committee? We're wrapping up? Okay, well then we're going to adjourn the policy committee meeting at 7:17.